Yes, Tucker. Tucker's back to his usual self, trying to get in the shop. Are we fired up? Fired up. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. Tucker's back to more of his usual self, trying to get immediately into the shop. Cheers. I am Dave Frees. I'm here with my co-hosts,
Alex Frees,
Somnath Sikdar.
and there are a bunch of you out there. We need dates from you. We've got to book your appearance. So you have to come to Malvern. And we know Michelle, I don't know if you're on or not, but we know you're coming. And I think we have a date from you, but let's just firm that up. We're going to have Tyson Franklin from Australia. He's going to do one.
Excellent.
And he rolls in to our Business Black Ops event in October.
Oh, he is coming.
Yeah. So he's going to do one, I think,
Very
on
good.
Sunday.
Very good.
I might need you to stay out at the ranch that one extra day.
No problem.
So we can do it with Angela.
Yeah.
And we'll get Angela.
Yeah.
She's coming.
Yeah.
So, but we have some excellent shows coming up. In fact, this week's show, is the business version of a show that turned out to be very popular and interesting to everybody. Getting more juice from the squeeze. That was kind of in every aspect of your life, in fitness and in health and in our personal lives and our business life. We had so many questions from that we wanted to do a follow-up just focused on business. So I see liking furiously going on. So does that mean Greg Buckley is on?
It doesn't look like Greg is on yet, but Lisa and Nicole Citron are.
Oh, well, Lisa and Nicole, thank you. Once again, proving that the demographic information we get is a little bit misleading. And that women...
Oh, Greg is on.
Oh, there it is,
Greg
Greg
on.
Buckley. Right. Welcome, Greg. How'd your show go this morning? By the way, Lisa and Nicole, jump in with questions. One thing I want to experiment with, and we'll ask the audience periodically as it grows here, too, I think we could do live call-in questions as well as the comments. And because of how we're set up, we'll give everybody a number for some future shows where they can call in. And I think that will be easier than trying to do everything. Some things are best done with comments.
Right.
Also, the podcast is about to launch. We should tell everybody.
Yeah, excited about that.
Yep. And next week's show is Anger, Anxiety, and Frustration, the True Drivers of Success. Again, not confined to business, and that sounds counterintuitive and maybe like you wouldn't want to cultivate anger, anxiety, fear, and frustration. But there's a lot of science behind the idea that this gets us, that these emotions get us to do things that we have to do but wouldn't otherwise do. And that the real extra juice from the squeeze here comes from meditation and other practices which don't have to be woo-woo, which give you the ability to kind of control and use those emotions rather than let them woo you.
Right.
So we have a really good show on that, and I think we're going to get Dr. Wyman to either come be on that show so he could tell us from a psychologist standpoint how to do this. So, we're going to have a show on happiness. So once again, sounds like we're talking two different languages. Like we want you to be angry and frustrated and anxious and fearful, and yet we also want you to find more happiness. But there's a place for both of those things, and they're all human emotions, and they occur with all of us. So we've got a great show for you next week. We also have some great segments for you this week, so if you're just joining us, stay on, because we've got a health and fitness segment, and we've got some extra business things too. And I violated your Dave, no more than 3 book recommendations per show rule.
I see that.
And I'm a little
makes it hard for getting links quickly, just Steve Richardson.
And Steve,
I'm just looking out for Steve.
Well, here's the thing. This week, you're only allowed to pick one. You can't say, I'm going to read or order more than one of these. And the part of the reason is that there's a lot of strategies and tactics on today's show. All of these have really good science behind them, and they have all worked for all of us.
Brian Slater is crying that he can't pick more than one.
Just one, Brian.
Yeah.
You could go, if you promise me that you've actually read that book and implemented something from it, you could go back and watch the show again, like it, if you didn't the first time, which would be, frankly, kind of rude.
Yeah.
I don't know what that...
Yeah.
Like, if you're watching this and you haven't already left in disgust, you should hit the like or that love button.
Yeah.
And you should also share this show, because I can't, unless you are like a devout communist, where none of your friends have a profit-making business.
Right.
Although Alex and I discovered that profit-making is super prized, really, in communism.
Yeah.
And totally out of control. Communism is doing capitalism better than we are right now.
Well, yeah, but not.
But not.
Really.
Yeah.
There's always the fear that the oligarchy is going to like swoop in and take.
And that's
everything
who's
from it.
making.
So
the profit.
they're extracting profits better than we are.
Yes.
But
They
they
are,
are
and
not
we-
necessarily doing capitalism.
But unless you have no friends with businesses, you should be sharing this.
That's right.
This is not a plea for help or
Share
begging.
it, tag people in the comments if you're watching right now.
Yeah,
that
so
should be watching it right now.
Here's
and
how
you
we're
know
getting
wrong.
you to do this, is we're going to tell you that all these things we're telling you to do are things that you should be doing to get more people to watch your live or your content. So, and it's true. We have found that tagging people in comments, while rude, is highly effective.
Highly
and if
effective.
it is something that's really good for them, then do it.
Do it.
Do it.
And asking a question either in the original post or in the comments, and sometimes being as clear as, please comment below.
Yes.
It
How
makes
about
a surprising difference.
So let's be clear. Hit the like or love button. It's okay. We triggered a couple of frowning faces last time, which is
But
also
that's
good.
good.
Yeah. If everybody agrees with you all the time and you're just trying to make everybody happy, that's not going to be good. So we want you to do the liking and loving. We want you to share this. We want you to ask questions. We're telling you to do it, which you should be doing with your folks too. We want you to share this in your timeline and also share it by message to somebody where it would be useful. Oh, look at all the loving here of these practical, tactical
Craig
things
and
that you can do.
Katie.
Katie is out of control. Oh, Katie is going to be on. Katie, we need to get a date from you too, because spring fashion, we're doing fashion for men and women. Just how to get like a little bit more, how to look a little hotter. It's not like we need that,
No.
especially you two. But we're gonna. So I'm sitting here with like a hunting vest on, going to share my fashion secrets. So this goes a little bit beyond just
You
that.
did have an interesting thing to say about vests. Like if you wear them, but it's not an outdoor vest, then it's kind of faggy. And if you,
Jeez.
I'm just your words, as Sean Spicer would say.
I don't. Did I say that?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that must have been with like,
There might have been some brown liquor involved or something.
or
anger.
a lot of gay friends. Because when I am with
Yeah.
gay friends, and they start getting carried away, because that sounds like there was definitely no anger. At the best,
I was kidding.
I couldn't muster
I was kidding.
anything on it.
Which we have to be careful about joking, because that might get you
It might be could result in some triggering.
triggering, or you have to resign.
Well, we're going to talk about little things like wearing a watch, which I notice you're wearing, which is very rare in today's world because everybody wants to dig the cell phone out and look at it. But this is a much cooler gesture, by the way, and it can add a lot of appearance. So let's just start in with the big picture. The meta strategy on here on getting everything that you can out of your existing business and stuff you already have, so that's going to be the focus today, is we just want to ratchet everything up a little bit more, is just be a tiny bit more strategic than you have been about everything you do. So let's talk about what that means. So what that means to me is pausing every now and then to do a little bit deeper thought and a little bit deeper work. So if I'm tempted to go do an ad, or I'm tempted to go do a Facebook ad or in a magazine or something like that, I want to think about it. What is it that I'm really trying to achieve? Because so many businesses that we work in and work on with other people, or advise, because we're all advisors to other businesses, we see them doing things that cost them time and money and energy and keep them from making other choices doing things that are actually promoting the products that have the lowest profit margin, for example. So you can get carried away with this. So the big picture thing that you need to do is schedule being a little bit more strategic and thinking about stuff before you do it. And whenever you feel the compulsion to do something, then stop yourself and say, is this the best, most profitable, most useful, expenditure of my time, both for the client, customer, and patient experience, and for the bottom line of my business. So if everybody that was watching today just went and blocked out, I don't know, this is different for everybody. For me, I got to block a whole day to do that kind of deep thinking. I don't get to it. If I block an hour, then the tiniest interference now has it down to 45 minutes. And I'm really not into the deep thinking for like 15 minutes or half an hour. I'm kind of just getting there, and then the time's up.
Right.
So I need bigger chunks of time to be asking those kinds of questions. Who am I really selling to? What is it that they really want? What products do I already have that in? Which of these are the most profitable? Are they getting the right kind of clients for us? These are all questions that we should be thinking about before we do tactical stuff. So the two ways to discipline yourself to this are to actually block time for deeper thought and then go through a series of exercises just methodically and ruthlessly that get you there. Also, another simple way to do this is an editorial marketing advertising calendar.
Right.
Just go get your calendar right now. This is the big strategic thing. And block off time when you're going to do this and start to schedule. I'm going to do or have whoever does my blogging do blogs on this period of time. Once you have that time scheduled to do it, then you start to take a first run at setting up what you're going to be doing and topics and things like that. And then, loving this. And then what you're going to do is go back through them when you've done a couple of strategy sessions and say, are these doing what I need them to do? One of the things we're going to talk about today is the back end and the upsell and the continuing relationship. And always be asking yourself this, like, is the headline good for this? Is this topic going to be of interest to the right kind of people? Do I have a call to action in there? Is it a call to action to sell, or am I driving to some place where they can read more? Remember last week we talked about how Dan Kennedy writes these books that are really gigantic sales letters with usable information, selling the idea of doing it, maybe not telling you exactly how.
Right.
So, are you using these strategies? So, two big things. Block time now to set up an editorial calendar and to do deeper thinking. Set up an editorial marketing advertising calendar, and then start to plug the stuff in as you go. But just go back through and ask yourself a series of questions we're going to talk about today. So, big picture, those for me have been huge. Any big picture strategies that either of you guys have employed lately that are making a difference for you?
Well, I think just the idea of carving out time, is something that I've, in the last year or so, really been more committed and dedicated to doing.
And can I stop you there? Because before you were really dedicated to doing it, didn't you used to tell yourself a story like, I'm doing that?
Yeah.
But you weren't doing it, at least in an optimal way.
And if you treat it as like, when I get to it, then you never get to it, right?
And little things just come in and eat your time.
Yeah,
totally.
Dan Sater says hello.
And it's
Dan Sater, hello to you. We're getting some super savvy people that join us every week. That's fantastic.
Nice. So, for me, it's at least 4 hours a week. 4 hours a week, so it's,
Is it in smaller chunks or one big chunk?
One big chunk.
Yep, that's how
It's got to be, because there's a certain amount of like rev up time to get it, just like you said. And the other important part for me is I don't necessarily need to go away, but I have to change the condition, the environment. So I won't be sitting in my office where I particularly do most of my day-to-day tactical type of work for my deep thinking type of work. There needs to be a change in setting, a change in conditions, and a change in environment.
Although for me, going away is even more disruptive of the usual way I think. So one of the things that I do, I think you do this too, is we deliberately set time when we're going to go away, but do this deeper thinking.
Yes.
So a lot of times people go, okay, I'm going to go on vacation, and they don't allow any time for this. And I would encourage you at some point of the vacation, typically not the first day in or the last day out, but to set aside a morning or a day, because now you're in a totally different environment. You've seen how different people are doing different things,
right? And
it's going to influence you. But you're right. If I'm in the office and I carved out 4 hours of time, I couldn't do it, because no matter how tough and good the systems are, you're going to hear things going on, and people are going to know you're there. So change of environment, One of the things that we all do is we go away for 3 days where we're all helping to run a program, but also participating in that program. And you do that in your own world, and you do that too, where you go to events.
Yeah, I just, last night I got back from an event. So a bunch of martial arts school owners, we all went down to Cozumel. The event was only 2 days, but you end up being down there for 4, the front end and the back end day. And we spend the mornings just, was quote unquote content where different people are presenting. And then we spend the afternoons networking and meeting, and we spent a couple hours, myself, Lonnie, and another business partner of ours that we're starting a new venture on, just spent a couple hours brainstorming and really formulating what this is going to look like over the next year.
So I love that. So you're getting the content and the network and everything, and then you carved out the time to do this, which we kind of do in Business Black Ops, the 3 Days to Success. I used to just sell 3 Days to Success, and it was 2 days, which I thought was hilarious.
Right.
But then the idea was you're supposed to stay for the 3rd day. And a lot of people did, and it was good for them to get the relaxation of things. But now we've kind of disciplined that process in the 3rd day.
Yep.
We're getting people to say, here's what I got from this. What do I do strategically and tactically, and actually get it on the calendars and things. Alex, you do events. Anything else strategically that you do?
I, in addition to keeping things in my phone calendar just out of convenience, they big strategic level things that I know I need to block out time for are always kept on paper, and I actually just get a monthly planner from Staples or something. So blogs are, for instance, this past summer we did a summer blog series, so it was 3 blogs a week for, I think it was 6 weeks or something like that.
Which was super effective.
It was very effective, yeah. So that whole strategic level thing, I actually planned out on paper. So there was no sitting in front of a computer trying to figure this out or anything like that. I, again, left the office, went back to my house and sat outside and knocked out the whole plan for that whole blogging strategy and how we wanted to do that.
And we should refer everybody to last week's show where we talked about the science. You hear this touted as wisdom a lot, taking notes with a pencil and paper is better than taking them on the computer. But last week we researched and found out why and what the actual effects of that were. Yeah. So we're not going to rehash that here, but we're all saying that we do that, and it's highly effective for us.
Bappa is here.
Bappa.
Oh, Bappa.
Hello, Bappa.
He says, "Where are your pens?"
I should say, Lord. See, he's right on top of it. We did do some writing and scrawling, and we did write on what is this mysterious stuff?
Yeah,
paper. VJ says, "Where do you go?" I think in response to what you were saying.
Oh, VJ, hey, welcome.
Where do you go to travel, to get out and
well, traveling. If it's traveling, it depends on where the event is. It might be Arizona. Mm-hmm. In this case, it was Cozumel, Mexico. We have another event we're putting together in St. Pete's. So a nice thing, you try to make the destination somewhat pleasant. Warm weather gets you out of the Northeast. A real change in scenery, not just a change in venue.
I was going to say we have an amazingly large Indian contingent on here right now. We've
Yeah,
got Bappa and VJ and Somnath
and Danny Bratsky.
Well, so welcome everybody.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, we've got a great crowd on here of very, very smart people. So Bappa and Danny and VJ, you missed a little bit.
That's just fun.
Which is jump in anytime with questions. In the near future, we're going to be having call in. Feel free to share this. We went over a whole bunch of strategies at the start, which is we're asking everybody to do stuff, but we're also telling you if you guys are using this particular social media tool or in almost anything you do, make sure you ask people to like it, make sure you ask people to share it, make sure the things that they need to do to interact with you that'll be beneficial to them and beneficial to you, you're making plain, because people won't know otherwise. And there's tons of loving and liking going
That's
on.
Laura.
Yeah, well, excellent. Welcome, Laura. Another big strategy before we get to a lot of little tactical things is just like when we go away, when we look at industries outside of our own, we see things that can be disruptive. So again, we have mentioned periodically that if you are really doing what everybody else in your industry is doing, you are likely to get very mediocre results, because in virtually every industry, and this is predicted by Pareto's principle, there's a small number, somewhere between 10 and 20%, that get almost all the profits. Just like in ice cream, there are a couple of flavors that everybody buys. Right. And so if you're doing what everybody else in your industry is doing, you're going to get, by definition, pretty mediocre results. So you have to be disruptive. So we want you, when you look at other industries, to understand that there's a couple of benefits to that, but you can really enhance what's going on and the benefits you're going to get by saying, let me look at the most successful businesses in that industry and seeing what they're doing. How are they attracting people with their online or offline marketing? How are they converting them? How do they treat them? What process do they go through to indoctrinate them? How are they sorting the wheat from the chaff? How are they delivering?
Liking that metaphor.
I do love that metaphor lately. How do they deliver the service? So all of these things in other industries, we're likely to see things that for one reason or another nobody in our world is doing. Right. And that's like going on a vacation and disrupting. And remember, we've talked about reading as being a intellectually disruptive activity. You're getting insight into the way that other people think and do things. So this is one of those things that I would schedule. We do it when we travel. We're always looking for, like, hey, how do people in this culture, in this geography do it? And a lot of times it's not in any way, shape, or form related to what we do. And we saw it was super attractive and interesting to us when we'd see these weird combinations of businesses. Like the, what was it? The
foot massage coffee shop.
Well, and when you think about it, it's brilliant, right? But what, at a bigger level, the foot massage coffee shop inspires all kinds of headlines you could come up with. Right. And put these two things that seem not to go together in your headline and really get people's attention. So put in the list of strategic things that you're going to do during this time you're blocking off, to look at other industries, identify the top 20%. And I would also say, look at industries that not you're necessarily buying from, but that your clients, customers, or patients are buying from. Right. Who else are they buying from, and what are those people doing that's really successful with them?
I have a tactical way to figure
Let's talk about that.
So,
ooh, this is going to be good. Pay attention, because you're going to hit the like button. I think I know where we're going here.
Something that I learned.
Steve Richardson's in the house.
Oh, right.
Yes, sorry.
Finally got this to stop buffering. Sounds like, Steve, you need better internet.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Or we need better internet.
No, I don't think it's us, and because we got like huge speed, and I think Steve gets it from his neighbor.
Steve, that might be why you're getting some poor podcasts.
Install a repeater.
And thank you for having Alex on. I hope that was a good podcast.
It was. I hope so. But
somebody made this face.
A little while back, we learned a tactic from a digital marketer at Content and Commerce, or what they were doing to in their various different properties, learn kind of either where to go next or what they need to be offering in that property. They would put up sort of automatically optimizing Amazon ads, so that people would get cookied on Amazon on what they're looking at, and then they would go to a digital marketer site and start seeing ads for those kinds of things that they were looking at or purchasing on Amazon, and then digital marketer would have an affiliate account with Amazon and start selling them. So they would see somebody who's interested in DIY projects. That's how they sort of figured out, these people also like sewing, because they were buying sewing supplies on Amazon through digital marketer's site. So
the liking is not going on yet. So I think what's happening is, this is brilliant, but a tiny bit complex to understand.
Right.
But so good.
Breaking it down a little bit, if you can figure out, and this is a super, it's when you look at it, very simple way of doing it, but it seems complex on the face of it, is if you go to Amazon, when you go there and you're searching Amazon for things to buy, or you know what you want to buy, you're actually getting a piece of code attached to you, or, like, in simplistic terms, they're essentially going to staple like a flag to you. And when you go to another website, I don't know what's happening here. When you go to another website,
NSA, I would say that that's the
they're
NSA.
patching in, yeah.
There's some stuff they probably want to cut out.
And and that website has a ad from Amazon. They're pulling in ads from Amazon or from Facebook. Facebook has ad networks now that can send ads various places. They're going to show you ads that you're most likely to respond to. So in their case, you are going on in Digital Marketer's case and DIY Project's case, you're going to Amazon and looking at sewing products or other DIY products. And then when you got to their site, those ads for those products were starting to show to you, and they can then see that you're starting to purchase and look at sewing products as opposed to just DIY. Like
so a real world example where they got me was I was interested in a tactical flashlight. So I went to Amazon, I hadn't decided which one, and then when I was on their site, I see an ad for tactical flashlight and I buy it. Now they know I'm probably a person that's either outdoorsy or a prepper, whatever it might be. They learn a lot from that. So this is what Alex is telling you is the super secret spy method of doing this electronically. Here's how you might do it. Have a survey to customers electronically delivered where they come in saying, what else are you interested in? What else are you buying? Now, they may not be telling you the truth, but it's just...
We also do. So we actually use something called True Conversions, but there's multiple other services out there that actually have what's called a micro survey, which just basically pops up after a certain amount of time, or it pops up right away on your website in a certain area. So we have a micro survey pop up on credit cards. So if they're going through our credit card selection and they're thinking about applying to one, we can actually figure out what other credit cards they want, and if we're supplying that already, what is good about that. So micro surveys and just surveys in general can be super powerful in that, but you have to have a very responsive audience to that. So this is kind of a more secret way of doing it, and it is a little more complex than the micro survey, but you get a very good idea of what products your market is buying.
And you could start by simply noticing more of what they're buying and interested in and having conversations with them, and they're noting that. Now here's why this is so powerful then. If you find out what else they're buying and you go to those industries and you look at the top 20% who are really successful companies and you see what they're doing, you're going to see other things they're doing that your audience is super responsive to. And here's the other thing. This is why you're getting multiple benefits from this. You're going to start to see the way they advertise, the way they convert, the language in their offers, and you're also going to have potential partners for what it is that you're doing. So one of the things we're going to tell you, the fastest way to increase margins with your existing customers is to find an upsell or a cross-sell or other things that you could sell them. And so you could begin by providing them with something from one of these other suppliers or people or things that they're interested in that are in that top 20%. But you should also maybe be looking at how they're actually selling to their audience, because that could be informative to you. So we have other strategies we're going to share to you. We're going to transition to the tactical, but I thought we would do a couple of things here. We could do a little bit on our segments, and then I also have a couple of products that I recently purchased, and I want to talk about those. So do you want to start, Sam, with fitness today, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of, it's more about, like, let's say mental fitness than physical fitness. One thing that you really clarified for me a couple years ago at one of the BBO events was this idea that many of us go in, especially in like the younger stages of business and entrepreneurship, is we have this idea that, if I'm successful, then I'll be happy. Right? And, what you helped me really clarify is, well, no, if you're happy, then you'll be successful.
It certainly makes it easier.
It's
more fun along the way.
Yeah, exactly. And we were at this event, and this gentleman was speaking as a pair of very successful martial arts schools out on the West Coast. And he's semi-retired. He's been to 27 countries in the last 27 months. But he made a great point. He said, write down what makes you happy. And what most people will do is they'll write down things that they think are going to
make them
happy in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no. And it can be simple, it can be mundane, but write down the things that make you happy right now.
And though sometimes the way I get to that with people is I say, write down things that in the last year,
Mm-hmm.
and in the last month, and the last week, and the last hour
Yeah.
made you happy. And what's astonishing about that is sometimes when you get to the last week or hour, people are struggling, which should not be true.
Right.
But it gets them to be a little bit more aware of what's really going on in their lives that can make them happy.
Yeah, so I think two things happen there. One is that idea of, reticular activation,
Mm-hmm.
where, by going through that exercise, you'll start noticing, the little things that make you happy, but then you also realize that, all the things that we try to accumulate and accomplish that we think are going to make us happy in the long term aren't really the thing. And it's often, the simple things that make you happy. And when you kind of change your expectation and awareness of those, it changes your outlook. And like you said, you have more fun along the way.
People also find out, I think when they do this exercise that you're talking about, that they are much more in charge of this than they thought they were.
Yeah.
But because they have no conscious awareness of it, it's like everything else, they're just sort of buffeted around, and happiness seems to happen by accident to them.
Right.
But they begin to realize, I learned way later in life that I should have, that just by breathing in a certain way, you almost always become happy.
Right.
Or at least it relieves anxiety or the things that are barriers or perceived barriers to happiness. So that's an awesome one, something that we could do right away, that little exercise.
Yeah.
Figure out what's making you happy now and in the last few days and weeks and months. Love it. I love that. I'll just come this way. So I have two things that I bought recently. One I've mentioned before, but I just want to remind you, and that's Utopia, which we're all drinking here. And that is some people use it as a pre-workout, just a little cognitive enhancer, which if people are saying oh, I'm not going to take a drug, you are taking drugs all day long. So this one has a little bit of caffeine in it, and it's designed just to boost sort of mental function.
Yep.
And this one's pretty gentle to me, and this one I respond to.
Yep.
People respond to different stuff, but just if you Google Utopia, you will find it. Utopia Nootropic or Utopia pre-workout, and that one is really excellent. And you wouldn't take it typically before you're going to go to bed, unless you're one of those people that can make a quad shot of espresso and have that before you go to sleep. But in the morning, now look, also the way the neurotransmitters work in your body, to wake you out of sleep, they start to dump stuff like adrenaline and oxytocin into your bloodstream. So having a cup of coffee or drinking this right after you wake up is I think I heard the analogy of throwing lighter fluid or gasoline on a fire. You get a bigger bang, but it's sort of short. Yeah. But after a couple hours after you're up and going, or an hour after you're up and going, this can really enhance cognitive function. This is an Epson Workforce scanner. So this is a little scanner. You can get wireless versions and versions of these little mini scanners that also have a SD card in them, or a micro SD. And so you could just scan, if you're like me and you do, and I'm going to call everybody's attention to some previous shows we did where I went through the methods that I use to get lots of headlines from reading the magazines that the people that come to see me read, or the people that are buying the product read. And so if you want to be able to go back and refer to those without keeping, and Robin objects to this, big piles of crumpled ads torn out of newspapers, this is a really super way to do it. You can even pack this when you're traveling. It's very easy to do.
Steve Richardson says Fujitsu also has.
Yeah, actually, Steve, you're correct. I don't know why I sounded super surprised by that. Didn't mean to. No, you're exactly correct, Steve. Fujitsu has a really good product, and these are not expensive. I think this thing was $39. So this is a really inexpensive buy that can let you. I just create a series of folders. So I have ads. I have scanning ads that I like the design of, for headlines, for bullets, for offers, for calls to action, those kinds of things. And then I just scan in and keep them there. It's super easy to go back and look at them then. Alex, do you have a brief segment for us today?
I didn't really prepare anything, but
Yes, I like that. Just what you were planning on doing.
I made coffee about 9 a.m. this morning and put it in this, which is a Canyon Coolers tumbler, like a vacuum sealed tumbler. But the Yeti makes them, and then there's another company called Arctic, and the coffee is still piping hot.
And those three companies, I think, have somehow figured this thing out. But I mean, we may just be falling victim to really good branding.
Yeah.
But they do seem to do a better job of it than the one that you just go buy, the generic at Walmart.
Yeah, I actually have Laura got me for my birthday.
We've got the thumbs up to the Canyon Cooler.
Definitely likes that.
Yeti.
Which is a short tumbler for whiskey, and it kept whiskey on rocks cold for over 24 hours.
Oh, very nice.
Wow.
So, it's pretty good product. So we can post some links, I'm sure.
I see Greg is, by the way, thank you for everybody that's liking this. And Greg, I'm going to be, because Greg is such a calm guy. He's all about the love and caring for others. So look, he's loving this now. I'm curious if he will enjoy and maybe have some insights into next week's show on anger, fear, and anxiety.
Yeah.
As the true drivers of success. Yeah. So we're looking forward to having your input on that, Greg. And Greg, you're just in Delaware, and I know you're super busy on Sundays, but we should get you as a guest. Greg has some really interesting perspectives.
He's been doing a live show himself last couple weeks.
Yeah, and I have missed getting on to do this live. I go back and do it for you, Greg, but just because of the timing, like we're in the middle of prep when he's on usually. But thank you for joining us, as always. So now back to our topic, and we have some book recommendations that relate either to the tactical stuff or to the strategic stuff we've talked about, or to the tactical. This is a book. Will this show up okay for Steve this way?
Yeah.
Steve, excellent. So this is called Steal Like an Artist. So you've heard us in the marketing stuff that we've done talk about swipe and deploy. And this book has the following bullets. Steal like an artist. Unlock your creativity. Steal like an artist. Don't wait until you know who you are to get started. Write the book you want to read. Use your hands. Side projects and hobbies that are important. The secret. Do good work and share it with people. Geography is no longer our master. Be nice. The world is a small town. Be boring. It's the only way to get work done. And creativity is subtraction, which we've been talking about a lot lately, getting past the complexity that we have been encouraging everybody to engage in. And then we're saying, but there's a point at which you stop that and you try to get to the simplicity. Now, here's the thing. We've also talked recently about something that we've noticed. When we say swipe and deploy, we don't mean just steal somebody else's work product.
Right.
There is an art to this, and this book has a really good take on that. So this is good theft versus bad theft. Good theft, honor what you're seeing. Bad theft, degrade it. And you'll remember that a few weeks ago I was talking about a guy posting on, what's that, more business-oriented
LinkedIn.
platform. Yeah, LinkedIn. And he had these, persuasion and influence things. And they were just Cialdini. So he never acknowledged Cialdini. Yeah. He more or less just wrote it the way that Cialdini would summarize his own work. So he didn't bring his own voice to it.
Yeah.
So this is what we're talking about. The good theft, study it, versus bad theft, skim it. So if you're going to take an idea or a theory from somebody, get into it and bring your own. Steal from many versus steal from one. What he's talking about there is synergy, right? Finding lots of things and putting them together in a new way. Giving credit when you steal versus plagiarizing, which is what I saw and was somewhat offended by. Good theft being transforming, bad theft being imitating. Yeah. Now there is a place for imitation where there's credit or enough variation. So like a really good headline or approach might be easily adapted to a radically different kind of business that you're in, but it should be designed in a different way. It should have different bullets that are unique to you. Maybe you give credit to it rather than claim it as your own.
So you imitate the formula and the format, but not the copy.
Exactly. Or you allow the copy, or to the extent you do use it, you explain why you're using it and where it came from. So this is the one, if you're interested in and being informed by this idea of going to another industry, I would maybe pick this up. And it's it's very easy to read. It's also, by the way, a really good example of if you're going to do publishing, how you might create a book that's relatively quick and easy yet super powerful. This is simplicity. The other thing that we're going to talk about is before you do a book, because everybody wants to run off and do books and feature-length movies and things like that, write some checklists and infographics on something you think is going to be interesting to your audience and see which of those is really of interest to them. And then go from that to a little short white paper to a more full-blown report to blogging about it to consolidating that into a book. We're about to get to some stuff on advertising as part of marketing, because marketing is really big leverage. Figuring out how to draw people in, figuring out how to convert them, figuring out how to have your marketing deal with a lot of objections. And then when they come in to see you and decide whether to buy, here's what a lot of people get good at. They get relatively good at the marketing. It's still a small segment of business owners. Then people come in and they haven't gone through the price objections. They had in the course of the marketing. You're doing business in a totally different way than they expect. It makes it hard on these sales people who are answering your phone or closing them or getting them to sign a contract. So you got to get your marketing to do that. But then get really good salespeople. Train them better. And I don't mean that every business we're talking to or every professional practice has a sales force, but they do. They may not be thinking of it that way. It may be the people answering the phones. You actually have people getting the kids and the parents, well, the kids aren't signing the contracts, but people sign contracts for training. They're not instructors, or they are instructors, or they could be instructors.
The person doing the sales presentation?
Yeah.
No, not necessarily.
But they could be?
They could be.
So you have to cross-train instructors who find themselves in that situation, know how to get people who clearly, by the way, want their kids or themselves to train, but might balk at a contract, so you've got to be able to deal with that. So one of the ways to do that is to do your advertising better. And so Making Ads Pay is a less commonly touted book by Caples that is really, really, really good and pretty easy to use. So this is on advertising as a piece of marketing. You want to become better at writing, or at least knowing if you're hiring people who are doing good writing. And this would be a good training tool for you if you're going to do it, or for people, which is a marketing expert TJ Rollletter. So this is one of those books that's promoting people to probably hire TJ, but it's filled with some good stuff. 17 proven marketing strategies that you bring massive sums of money from every word of sales copy you write. But it's called Ruthless Copywriting Strategies. So this, in a way, comes before this, because this is how you might use this. And then, if we want to be better at doing all of these things, attracting people, converting them, getting them to, training your salespeople to be better at that part of the role, writing copy that convinces people that they made a good decision after they buy, finding ways to upsell them. Split Second Persuasion by Kevin Dutton, who I think is at Oxford. The Ancient Art and New Science of Changing Minds. Really good book that most people probably have not read. And so that's, again, at the strategic level there. We're going to talk now in the next, we have about 15, 20 minutes. Now we're going to talk, and thank you, Alex is putting up the links for all of these. Now we're going to talk about how you take this strategic stuff that we were talking about and tactically doing it. So here are a few things that will really help you break through. And again, many times when we teach these, or when we're talking about with business owners that we work with, and of course with ourselves, we say, I'm already doing that, but you're probably not. And in fact, if you hear yourself saying that to one of these, that's probably one of those that you should grab and dig into. So clarity of who we're selling to and what we want our businesses to look like. So many entrepreneurs, professional practice owners, business owners, find that they create a job for themselves because they fail to think, what do I want my business to look like? Now, most entrepreneurs do not just want to go and sit at the beach all the time. but there may be things that are important to you, and finding a way to create a business that allows you to do those things. So that may be something as simple as, I want to donate to this charity and make a dent in the world in this particular way.
Right.
Well, then you're going to structure the kind of products you sell and who you're going to attract and how much of that goes to charity. You might build that right into the business,
Right.
or you might maximize profits so you're able to do that outside of the business. But getting clear about what you want out of the business and then what you're going to sell and to whom, very empowering. And in my own practice, we've continuously through the years narrowed and narrowed and narrowed and narrowed and been much more specific about who we're selling to. And that gives you a really powerful tool that you may not realize. If you're selling lots of products or services to lots of different kinds of people, your energy is going in a lot of different directions. Right. And it is harder to fulfill for each of them. Whereas as I get narrower and narrower and narrower, I can actually raise my prices and have better margins because I'm super good at delivering to the people that I've selected what I want. My team's more used to it, it's faster for us, and we know exactly who they are and where to go to get them, so our cost of acquisition goes down, and then we build this big group of them, and then they refer to us, so our cost of acquisition goes down, and they're referring the right people. So there are tools on how to do this. How to get a little bit more clarity about what you want and a lot more clarity about who you sell to. And we're going to do a show on that, specifically on these tools. But if you want more information on them, you could go to this, the blog successtechnologies.com/blog, and there are lots of materials in there. And if you want to actually go through these with us, you could come out to the event that'll be in October, which is, that's at 3 3daystosuccess.com. And if you're in this family and watching these things, you could get that pricing that's up there for you. That pricing is usually just reserved for people that have been to one before. Right. And so we're pretty careful about this. If you've never been, you got to call Lisa and get an appointment and talk to us for two reasons. We want to make sure that you're a good match with us, because this is a group of about 40 people that come usually. And we also want to make sure it makes sense for you.
Yeah.
So we don't want you to spend time and money and energy unless it's going to produce results for you. Now, create resources to test value propositions. That's what we were just talking about. Don't start by building out a product or service with what you think your people want, because you may be guessing wrong.
Right.
Especially if you're earlier on. Like, all of us have a long history. Well, even in yours, that changes from time to time in your business, what they want. So you're having to reinvent some things. You have some technology that's no longer delivering it in a way that they like. They want to see it in a different way. So let's talk about each of these three. Clarity of who we're selling to, clarity of what we want, and creating resources to test. This is the OODA loop, so we can go back and tweak.
Right.
So Sam, how do you do these things? I also added to this, listen to them, then create.
Right. So the first part of it is, we continuously are trying to redefine who our ideal customer is, and we do that by looking at data. So we have an idea like, well, this is the perfect martial arts student for us, but that person has actually changed a lot in the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, depending on how far you want to go. So we're looking at of our membership base and the people coming in, who is staying the longest, what's the best lifetime spend.
So watch that, because he's looking at the best people that have come in for these criteria.
Right. So in our business and many service-based businesses, we're looking at the account value, so it's recurring revenue. So which type of account is going to have the highest monthly spend, and then on top of that, over time, how long are they going to stay? So yeah, I might have an account that has $1,000 monthly spend, hypothetically, but they only hang around for 3 months.
That's not as good for you.
It's really not as good for me as the account that has a $300 monthly spend, but they hang around for 4 or 5 years. Because the biggest thing for us is that acquiring the new customer is the most expensive thing for us to do.
Now, let's take that person that's spending $300 a month. That might be for all kinds of good reasons, but they also might want other things that you could provide to them. So, look, one of the fastest ways to increase marginal value of your best customers then is to find this other stuff that they want. So, for example, you have a store with gear,
correct,
which I've through the years I've spent a lot of money on Dragon Gym gear, right? So, is that the primary? Let's talk about that. How do you go back and decide, and how often do you go back and decide what else might they want, and how else can we bring value to them and increase their value to us?
Yeah, so we do that in a combination of ways. One is just testing. So testing is making certain assumptions of, testing a product line with, let's say, our junior black belts, and if that ends up being very popular, then we'll expand it to the rest of the student base, or through surveying. So, and a lot of times it's just a simple survey where I, beginning of this year, send out an email, hey, what's one thing that you would like to do more of in 2017? And overwhelmingly the response was, hey, we'd love to have more workshops.
Like weekend kind of.
Like weekend seminars, guest instructors. And those are great because with merchandise, your margins are less because there's a hard cost. If it's a workshop that I'm running or I'm bringing a colleague to run, we just got to make sure that we get paid for our time. And the more people we can fill that workshop with, you can get great margins. And typically, those workshops are filled with existing customers. So it can be a way, retention, but also that idea is, I want to get more customers, but can I find a way for the customers I have to pay more often? And the workshop is a great way to do that.
And another thing it does is it builds relationship and trust.
Yep.
If you do it right.
Yeah.
Because you ask them, you're responsive then. They say, oh, look, I asked these guys, they're delivering this thing to me. I went, had a great time. And they're more likely to stay longer and buy more stuff.
Correct.
But we're always asking the question, how do we do this in a way that brings more value to the customer? Yeah. So Alex, for you, I know, and you're kind of reinventing this. So tell us what you're doing now to come up with that idea, because you're in this process of making the guess that Sam is talking about what they want next.
So for us, we're actually breaking the information down into different topics because there are so many needs that somebody who either needs to build credit or repair their credit has, so that or various different needs that they might have. So one could be they want or need to buy a house or a car, or they need to get some other kind of loan they're not qualifying for. And we've sort of broken those bits of information down that pertain to those topics, and we're making either super educated guests or we're using some kind of Facebook retargeting or demographics that we have to reach those people and figure out in those topics if what the information and content that we have on them is working.
So are you talking about things to attract and educate people rather than in the product?
Correct. So we're educating them on something that's relevant to them right up front. And that could be driving them to one of those reports that we have on that or a blog post on that topic. And I know that's sort of what we did before, but we're breaking them out now into each different topic. So the way we're then going in and marketing to them after they've opted in or read a blog or something like that is completely different based off of what their needs and wants are. Because before, the way that we were going in and approaching them was essentially, no matter what your situation is, here's content and information on credit repair and building credit. It wasn't broken down and written in a way that was extremely relevant to them, which is
so
what
might be like buy a house or car.
It was like I think some of the headlines were like, do you need to buy a house, a car, or cash, or get cash? So like that, obviously those three are still relevant to those people, but it wasn't written for specifically somebody who needs to buy or rent a house. It wasn't specifically for somebody that's looking to buy or lease a car. And it wasn't specifically for somebody who needed a loan or something like that. So that's how we've broken it down. And then we can market and deliver content to them based off of that. So you mentioned before that the forum is something that hasn't been working recently. It was something that was extremely useful to people when the company first started, and even within the last few years, but that has declined. Use of the forum has declined simply because it's just a medium that people aren't as interested in using anymore, and they want that content flowing directly into them. And we've actually discovered that using surveys of people and just basic questioning at various conferences and things like that. So that's something that we've discovered of how do we then take this content and information we pull them in with and market to them with that information that we have on them, and then deliver the right content that they're actually going to use, and then we can retain them better than what we were doing before.
So I want to share, thank you by the way, I want to share a couple of things that we just do, and then we'll wrap up with getting you, like, pick up a favorite one of these and just let us know how you do it. So here's what really, really effective business professional practices and people that are good at the marketing piece, which is kind of attracting and indoctrinating and sorting and delivering to sales, and then they're good at sales, is that they keep in touch, which you have that happen automatically because people are coming every week. But there are people that buy the gym membership but don't come too.
Well, there's people that don't come, and increasingly there are the buyer. So most of our business is kids, right? So the buyer, the customer, isn't the person getting the regular contact of the service. Right. And in addition to that, you know, the area is getting more affluent. Often the buyer isn't even bringing the kids anymore. The nanny is bringing the kids. You know, it's this like.
So there is a detachment.
There is a detachment. So keeping in touch, it has been a challenge for us actually, but we have to leverage technology, Facebook, email, Facebook Messenger, to stay in touch with people.
And think about, I mean, what Sam's saying is true, but you have to be sure, like in his business, he can probably do that and get away with it because that's a good way to be in touch with them.
Yeah.
But with your business, that may or may not be the channel.
Right.
So it may be direct mail. It may be a postcard. It may be some other, it may be a fancy package that you have to send periodically. But keeping in touch with the proviso that it's in the way that makes sense to reach.
And it changes. So a few years ago, email was the way to do it. Now people don't want to get emails. They want to be in a Facebook group.
So they can choose when to go look at it, but you have the advantage of some notification things there. So provide post-purchase reassurance. Super important to us. It's made a giant difference. So this could be something as simple as an email that says you made a good decision. It could be something more complicated like a sequence where you get an email or a letter followed by other pieces of information that by their very nature are going to show that the person was smart to have done this. Those can contain calls to action for upsells and things like that. Providing preferential pricing to existing clients and customers, but always explaining why. Same with new people. You don't want to train people to wait to buy from you until you have a sale.
Right.
So you have to mix it up, maybe make the sale relatively infrequent or just designed to appeal to certain segments so that it's less frequent to the whole group. But always explaining why they are getting preferential treatment. Don't take it for granted that when you give your existing customers a super good deal, because as you say, you spend a bunch of money to get them, you spend a bunch of money to get them. So when we give our existing customers, when we find other stuff that they want or renewal and we give them good pricing, don't assume that they're going to understand that that's exceptionally good pricing.
Right.
Tell them. Just like when we were saying to you, we want you to like this. We want you to share it. We want you to tag people. We're telling you what we want you to do to be clear about it. Here, you're telling them what you're doing for them to be clear about it. Be working on rapport and trust. It's something as simple as a thank you. I'm working in my office and trying to send handwritten thank you notes when somebody buys from us, when advisors refer to us. But finding other ways to create trust and rapport too. And I just published we'll get the links up on here, but I just published, I think 3 parts of the 4 parts are up on how do people decide when they're going to trust you and why. And there's some really good research on this and kind of narrows it down. It's under the blog, and there you go. That's part 3 of 4 just came out. But all the cross links are in there. And we did a call on this for Business Black Ops, and people loved that. Got a lot of comment on that. So Take a look at this article and you're going to understand a lot more about what people are thinking about and asking themselves when deciding whether to trust you and how to build rapport. And we'll have a show coming up on this, but in the next week or so, we're going to publish how interrogators use the techniques of interrogation in their own businesses. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, most of the interrogators who are the most effective are not using enhanced interrogation methods of like stress postures and feeding people high glycemic index foods and keeping them from sleeping. And, most of them are not using those, right. Or they are actually building rapport and trust and sort of understanding when people are telling them the truth and when they're not, and how we got to get over those barriers. But all of these techniques of interrogators can be adapted and used positively and morally and ethically. So I've got an article coming up on that, which weirdly goes to this issue of rapport and trust. So we talked about adding profit centers and always looking for who else are they buying from, and can you and should you be partnering with them. Just a couple real quick ones, and then we'll wrap up to be respectful of your time. But endorsed relationships, where somebody else writes a letter or communicates with their audience endorsing you, and ask yourself, who would that be and why would they do that? Quickest way, upsell, downsell, cross-sell. Finding out something else that enhances their experience with you, and finding a way to offer that repeatedly to people so that if they don't buy it the first time, there's maybe some automation that gets it to them. Increasing margins and the OODA loop. So increasing margins, if you've got something that people really buy and you're good at delivering it, ask yourself, what else can I put in this where and then ask them, by the way, where they would be happy paying more. Right. Where it costs me money to add this thing, but I can create a bigger margin because there's a higher level of satisfaction. And then finally, OODA loop all of this. And we'll do an OODA loop show, but what we mean by that is testing. So we've all told you that when we do this, we're always guessing. Even if we ask them, they don't always tell us the truth. Right. So we're always guessing, and we don't know if the thing that we've done or the way we're presenting it is going to work. And so we test that. And we don't just give up. We go back and test it again. Although there's a lot to be said for quitting, too. Yeah. We should do a show on quitting. It's so powerful. Yes, killing the babies. Yeah. Guys, this was a great show. To the audience, thank you. There's a big audience today. A bunch of people coming and going, and a bunch of people stayed on the whole time. And thank you very much. And thank you for the liking and the sharing and the tagging. So once again, if you know somebody who would benefit from any of this, be sure to tag them, send us questions. We noticed a bunch of you have been sending us questions by email after the show, which is perfectly fine. Happy to deal with it. But also feel free to, leave a question in the comments.
We're on the page.
Oh yeah,
write them on the page.
Write them right on the page, and I think will we have the podcast up and running?
Depends when the website. Well, we'll have the podcast up and running soon. Yeah. The website will soon to be following.
But one of the things that we're really going to want you to do then is to look at that. How did he do that? Like 30 likes all came.
The internet is just slow.
So that's what's going on. Okay, well that's fantastic. Thank you guys. And thank everybody for being on, and have a really great remainder of your weekend. Take care.